Hello, I'm John Zuliger, President and CEO of Integrated Power Services, and it's our pleasure to welcome you to episode 2 of our Respond, Rethink, Resolve podcast. Today, we're going to be talking in this episode about the workforce behind reliability. And I'm joined here today by Stuart Cheek. Stuart is our president of the electromechanical business. So Stuart is responsible for a lot of the aftermarket services for working on equipment such as electric motors and generators. So we're going to be talking to Stuart about some of his interesting background from a career that started off at a technician level and grew into a senior leader role. And then we're going to move into some of the things we're hearing from end users with respect to seeking reliability and a trusted advisor partner for this type of equipment. So Stuart, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, John. Good to be here.
It's great to have you. And I was really looking forward to having this conversation just because certainly the scarcity of labor is on a lot of people's mind today as it relates to finding talent. And I know of your story. I've had the pleasure of working with you. What have we worked together? 5 years?
6 years.
6 years? Oh, it's that much already.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I'm aware of your deeper background, and so I really want to ask you, some questions around how this career of yours got built, because I really think for people that are looking at this kind of industry as a potential career path, your story is inspiring. Obviously, you didn't start in this senior role. You started on the shop floor as a technician and a machinist. So take us back. Like, what does the beginning look like? When did you realize you wanted to work in this kind of industry?
Yeah, so I'm going to summarize a 37-year career on the electric motor OEM side of the business. And I grew up in North Carolina. I worked with my dad on a farm equipment dealership through my teenage years. So I came out of high school not really knowing exactly what I wanted to do, like so many kids.
Yeah.
And but I was pretty good at mechanical things, so I went into a machining program at a local technical college, and I found out I was pretty good at it. So I gravitated to that pretty quickly. And a year into my college career, I randomly put in an application to be a machinist at Reliance Electric.
And what did Reliance Electric do?
So Reliance Electric was an engineered motor manufacturer and design and manufacturing company. Mm-hmm. So they're pretty prominent in the United States. So I started out as a machinist on the floor, and I did that for a couple of years. And I was really curious about how the business operated. So I didn't think I could stand in that career path very long. So I furthered my career and went into an engineering program. And so as that advanced, I started looking for other areas to go into, in that manufacturing plant. And I was fortunate to have a really strong mentor. He was the plant manager there. And so he visited me practically every day to see how I was doing and see what I wanted to do next. So that started a 10-year, stint of mentorship. And he basically put me in every department manager that was in that plant, I basically filled over the next 10 years. So really thankful for, that relationship that he helped foster. So that was really how my career started.
I'm kind of curious because there's a lot of parallels in this story of original equipment manufacturer companies that made electric motors had very developed technical training programs. Is that what you found at Reliance? Did they have did you kind of come in as an apprentice and move up in levels, or how did that work?
I did. After that first 10 years, I transferred into, another motor facility as a facility engineering manager, then into other types of engineering roles. So I was, fortunate to be able to spend time in small frame motor design and manufacture. Went to another facility and did the same kind of path in large horsepower motor manufacture and design. And then ultimately I was asked to lead that large motor business for ABB, who bought Reliance Electric in 2011. So I was the general manager for 4 years, which was really ideal preparation for coming over to IPS 6 years ago and see that industry on the services side. It was just a really good preparation for me to move into the service side of the business.
We were patient. We were seeking, I think, you to look at coming to IPS well before that. I think it was, as I recall, 3 or 4 years of.
There was.
But it's I get it. It was hard to give up a multi-decade career, with a publicly traded, global company.
It was. IPS was started out of Reliance Electric, so I knew some of the management team on that side, and I had a lot of respect for them. So that made it quite a bit easier, for sure.
When you reflect back on that career path, from technician to machinist to management leadership and then senior management leadership, do you think that kind of career path is still possible for people?
I think it is. I see, IPS trying to develop that career path for its employees. And when that works, it just works beautifully because, that employee has witnessed the culture, has bought into the shared values of the company. But one of the things that really puts a difficult spot in that development is employees today don't want to relocate like I was able to do and further my development. So that makes it difficult to fully develop leadership without the opportunity and to move to other sites and see the company from different perspectives.
That's really an issue. And we've definitely seen it. I think something happened there really before COVID, but it was really accelerated by COVID, this aspect of, hey, if I find myself in a world event like a global pandemic, I want to be here, not there. I want to be surrounded and in proximity to family or friends. And certainly, if that was a trend before, we've definitely seen it accelerate, right? I don't know if that's going to change. That's really going to then probably be a limiter to some degree in people's ability to grow and develop and have a career pathway like yours, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
So the other thing that's been interesting about your story is the technical community college, right? And, I know you've taken a look recently at some of the trends in that area. What have you learned about the growing popularity of technical colleges and the interest in those programs?
Yeah, it seems like that trend has stopped, maybe with the start of COVID. And there's a lot of discussion around, returning to technical schools and seeing the career path from that standpoint. But yeah, there seems to be the utilization of technical schools seems to be higher now than it was 5 years ago, which is promising.
Right. Well, at IPS, we've really tried to develop these pathways. And so, we've taken a look at our program. We've gotten a Department of Labor certified, which we think is an important, kind of marketing feature to say, hey, we have a serious program. It's structured, and the Department of Labor has certified it. But basically, I recently looked at some data on our training program, and how it works is you come in as an apprentice, you work your way to a C, B, A lead level. So there's 5 levels, and I looked at it. It's really interesting. On average, it's taking about 2 to 3 years for a technician to come in, say out of high school, even not even going to a tech school, and be an apprentice. And usually, as they come in, what's I think a remarkable attraction, and we got to do a better job as an industry of telling our story on this. But someone can come in as an apprentice, become a C, become a B in 6 to 8 years, and make well over $100,000 a year doing that with no college debt. And I've been watching, is this growing in interest and popularity? And maybe it's just a little early, but what it might be emerging that, people that have a decision coming out of high school to go either into a program like this or go on to college are looking at AI looking at some of the questions on, are those careers going to be there in AI, and hopefully, looking more at a career in an industry like ours, right? Do you expect eventually that we'll get more interest from that kind of?
I do, but I do think that you're right. We have to tell our story because other industries are competing for talent out of those technical schools. And in a lot of cases, I think, students that are graduating out of those programs just really aren't aware of our industry and how lucrative and satisfying it can be.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the attractiveness of electromechanical as an industry and to set a career in it, there's a lot of things that people don't understand. I think electric motors are really taken for granted. Like, what do you think the install fleet of electric motors is in say, North America? In the millions, right?
They are. One statistic we always used on the OEM side is that motors consume 60% of all electrical energy generated. So that's a huge part of the value chain that we all depend on.
And that's an amazing stat. And for someone who's putting their head around that, what are the use cases that people just don't realize electric motors are being, utilized in their daily life? Can you give some examples that represent that fleet?
Yeah. From small to large, we don't think about appliance motors that we all see in our kitchens and homes to air conditioners and furnaces and, pumping stations. But, we always talk about pumps, fans, and compressors being the large part of the motor use, in applications. But, they're everywhere. Yeah. Your vehicle, your appliances, it's a huge part of what we depend on every day.
Yeah, exactly, right. The common understanding is in these big process industries like oil refineries and so forth, a basic refinery could install a fleet of like 30,000 electric motors, just an average refinery. But, all the hidden use cases are really around these areas. And I'm always fascinated how motors and our knowledge, brings us into awareness of air, water, and product moving toward, around, and away from people. Like, that doesn't just happen. Right. It's not just gravity. Right. It doesn't float through the air. It has to be, driven with an electromechanical device that takes an electrical signal and is able to use that good old-fashioned high school magnet that we all made in our science class in high school, and through multi-phases, AC, DC, induction, various, designs, creates a rotation of a rotor and a stator that creates a mechanical movement that can, drive undriven equipment. Right. And so that, by the way, I'm not an engineer. I've just
sounded like one.
13 years at IPS. I've tried to look for the simplicity to deepen my understanding of just what we do here. But, look, at the end of the day, this is a strategic asset for all of our end users. And they're growing. With the trend in electrification, the need for more electric motors is going to do nothing but grow from here.
That's right.
And this install base, like what's the average life cycle of an electric motor?
Well, the larger electric motors are designed for 20 years. And, the smaller, what we would call a throwaway motor, 10 to 12 years.
Right. And how do people think about repair versus replace? Like, how do they enter into that business decision when it fails? Why does it fail?
Yeah, that's a good question. Generally, it comes down to availability and price of repair versus new. Mm-hmm. And, we ran into some supply chain issues during COVID that kind of, bent that curve a little bit. But typically, if the repair is less than 60% of a new motor, then the customer's probably going to repair it. And if it's over that, they'll just buy a new motor. So, yeah, it varies a lot, right? An electric motor is both mechanical and electrical. And most people think about the electrical side, but a lot of the failures are on the mechanical side. So contamination is the number one cause of failure in electric motors. They're not designed to, to have a lot of contamination from the environment they're in, egress into the motor, but that creates the biggest failure mode. John, you've been with IPS for 13 years and have seen some of the battles. What are some of the best pathways for finding and developing people who want to do this kind of work? And what does the industry need to do differently to attract the next generation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we got to do a lot of things differently because we have a lack of people relative to the demand and the need. And we have this significant event happening, and that is we're facing the retirement of many of our most experienced people that are in the final stages of their career, 40, 45, some 50 years of experience. And so what are the pathways? Where are our future employees today? I think the number one way to find employees is through our existing employees. And I love that dynamic because, when you have a referral from an existing employee, you have sort of a pre-certification on the person.
You do.
Right? And they come and join our local teams, either in the field or in our service centers. And I love this little sort of locker room accountability that comes with it, right? Where the person that referred them really is highly invested in their onboarding, making sure they're safe, all the things that would normally, really fall almost entirely on the employer. And we still are responsible for the onboarding. But there's a little extra buy-in when you get a referral of a friend and family in that regard. You've seen that in
I have. I was
centers.
in Denver last week, and I went in and introduced myself to, they're having an operations meeting, and probably half of that team told me without prompting they were the second or third generation that had been in that business, and that is just great. That's a great testimony to the type of work we do and the pride that someone would have to bring other family members in.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Well, that's our number one way of finding, talent. And then obviously the other pathways are just, good old fashioned recruiting. And we have our own recruiters. The whole recruiting game has dramatically changed. Right. And I would have 10 years ago been surprised to find LinkedIn and Indeed employment identities out there where people who are seeking this kind of work actually take the time to go on a website, create a profile for themselves. Right. But you know what? They've learned that, it's important for you to have a persona out there and have a presence, whether that's considered social media or whatever, they make themselves discoverable when they do that. And that's really helpful.
It is.
And it's really helpful when they update as they advance their skill craft, because it permits the recruiter to really have a better understanding, not just that the individual's out there, but where are they, kind of in their career arc. Can I tell my favorite story of what we're doing at IPS in terms of creative?
Yeah, please.
So we have in our apprenticeship program some really strong relationships with certain high schools, some with STEM programs. And my favorite example is in Dallas, where we have a relationship with a science teacher at one of these high schools. And in the summer when he's off, he'll come and do some training for us. So it's good for us to get access to a technical training resource like that. But as he ends his summer rotation, we say, hey, do you know anybody coming up in the upcoming senior class who might be, a good fit? And so, we get a chance to get a preview of some upcoming talent from that local high school. And this is my absolute favorite part. So what we do is we have a non-binding apprenticeship contract. And so we'll engage these people, we'll introduce IPS, we'll recruit them at the high school senior level. And if they agree to come in an apprentice, you know what we do? We go to the high school and we do a signing ceremony. So we invite their parents.
That's great.
We bring the IPS swag, right? So it's like they're an elite athlete being recruited for a college athletic program, but it's a career,
That's fantastic.
opportunity. And I think, really that's the kind of creativity and ground game you have to have right now.
Yeah.
Because here's the facts. It's daunting to know how much retirement we're going to have. And so we basically need really all of the above. And I think we do as an industry, and we got to keep getting better at IPS, but we've got to do better telling our story. Like when you are describing what the value to an employee having a career in this industry, how do you talk about the best attributes of this industry in that context?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, when I'm talking to, prospective employees, I talk about, their safety focus.
Mm-hmm.
It's clean, it's safe. It's an environment where you can learn something different every day.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn from all the different designs of product that we see, from abroad and also in the United States. So it's a career that you'll never get bored in. You'll never, peak out and not learn additional things about this industry. And it's just a really satisfying career.
Yeah, I'll share with you kind of how I talk about it. And I've been in hundreds of our service centers and other people's service centers. And here's what I see when I walk in. What you're entering into is a mortuary for electric motors. So these electric motors have died. And what we do is we disassemble and determine the cause of death of that electric motor. Right? And in doing that, we determine, okay, if we're going to bring this motor back to life, here are all the steps that we're going to have to take to repair it. There are various subcomponents of an electric motor that drive both the electrical and the mechanical part of it. It's the only device that has that electrical and mechanical aspect. And so a lot of people who have never seen what this industry is, when we get the approval to go ahead and repair it for our customer, bam, it separates into 5 or 6 different areas in the service center, all bespoke, all designed and infrastructured and tooled to just fix that component. And then in a matter of 2 to 8 weeks, all these different sub repairs have to come together, be reassembled, and then electrified and tested, right? And we bring this carcass of a motor back to life. Inside of that, what I see is our technicians are certainly technical, certainly skilled, in some cases like highly detailed in their skill sets. And then when I go into places like winding rooms, right, where we're winding new motors and coils with stators, I see an artisanal aspect where there's a lot of pride in their work, symmetry as they're, blocking and tying surge rings. And so I think there's a lot to appeal to potential employers who, whatever about how I just described it, like what part of that is attractive? Do you like problem solving? We got a lot of that here.
Yeah.
Do you want to do something that, you can really see the progress of your work day to day? We got that too, right? There is a teamwork aspect to this. Like this equipment and the process can be dangerous. And so the teamwork, but I know that could be scary, but we're set up, right, to try to manage those hazards. And we do need to work in teams just to protect ourselves. So let's shift gears and talk about, the trend of outsourcing at our end customers. I mean, definitely our end customers are going to see the same threat of retirement from baby boomers and 40, 50-year experienced employees who know a lot about their installed electric motor fleet are going to be really irreplaceable, right? So as end users sort of face that, what's involved with their outsourcing decision? Like what kind of profile of provider are they going to have to look to replace, that lost talent?
Right. Yeah. I mean, all companies, they have to make decisions when they lose that talent to say, there's a lot of costs associated with keeping that size of the team that they may have maintained for years and years. So they have a choice to make. I can reduce that cost and only call in a trusted partner when I need them, or I can choose to replace and keep my staff the same size. So, I think a lot of companies, they see the difficulty in finding those people and training those people. So there's more and more people hitting the easy button and outsourcing that work to people, in aftermarket services like IPS. And I think, the best solutions that we've seen is kind of a hybrid strategy to where, all equipment is not just represented on the blueprints. A skilled maintenance guy that's had years and years of experience on a piece of equipment or process know the nuances of that equipment. And I think it's important that companies maintain that so that they have that in-depth product and process knowledge. But where IPS really comes in is really be that shock absorber for, long outages, or they need a root cause analysis on why something failed. And so the best situations are kind of where a company uses a hybrid approach. And, that really has worked well for IPS. That's the best scenario we see, is where we can come in and be that trusted advisor and supply that, that extra capacity when they need it.
Yeah, I think in the best examples, we are truly an extension of their reliability team and their maintenance staff. We get invited to outage planning sometimes a year, 2 years in advance, depending on how that is. And in an outage with their own employees, they have tough decisions to make around where they're going to deploy their own employees, right? When you talk about a process industry that's going to go cold down, there's a priority of the know-how and the knowledge and the training and the safety background where they have to only use their own employees, right? And then there's an aspect of, depending on the scope of the outage and how technical and risky and time sensitive some things are, finding a partner who can augment is important, right? So that extension is not just a matter of, are they tooled? Are they equipped? Are they qualified? It's also, are they familiar with us? And do they understand our practices and understand the broader strategy, right?
It is. John, you've been with IPS and have seen a lot of our customer relationships kind of evolve. What does it look like when this works the way it should? What's the difference between, say, a vendor and a true trusted advisor relationship?
13 years. And when I came in 13 years ago, IPS was focused just on electric motors and generators. And at that time, we had a 17 location network. I think it was 15 shops. And we were the most national, largely in the United States. What was interesting how this offering got built and how it relates to end customers is we were very repair-centric. And our heritage is actually your old employer, Reliance Electric. We were founded in 2007 when 11 of their repair shops were sold out to a private equity owner. And so all they did was repair largely Reliance electric motors. That was the purpose of the service network, right? So you built the new ones at that factory that you talked about, and then there was this service network that would repair and extend the life. But over time, as we owned that business longer and bought more, we started to see that, well, wait a minute, we can also do a lot more field service for our customers. And we noticed if we hired and they were qualified, we got invited back to do more. And that became a significant, growth lever. Yeah. And then this aspect of repair, this decision that a customer makes, there's also an economic break-even point where if they always say if it's about 60% of the cost of a new one, they'll go ahead and repair it. That seems to be about the economic trade-off. And of course, to your earlier point, how long is it going to take to get a new one, right? So speed and our end user customers, usually have a process that has either a sparing or redundancy in design. And that's a factor in their decision of repair versus replace too. But as we started building out lifecycle solutions, it also included critical asset storage, because we started to see that our end customers were taking care of their spares very poorly, like around the back of the building, in the rain, really being subjected to the elements, and frankly, not operationally ready. So what has evolved at IPS over time is truly now life cycle solutions that incorporate all 4 service sets. And I always like to tell this story of how it comes together for our customers. So let's say a motor fails in the process. Our technicians, our great technicians, get a call at all hours, weekends and whenever. And we have a storage facility with our customers' spares in. We take care of them every month to make sure they're ready. But that tech is dispatched to go to the warehouse, pick up the spare, go to our customer's location, decommission the failed motor, commission the spare, take the failed motor back to our repair shop and service center. We'll fix it. We put it back in storage. And that's where the full life cycle solution set, comes to bear. And I think motors can be repaired up to 4 or 5 times over their lifetime. And so I think that's an aspect of, how you move away from just being a vendor and a service provider to a trusted advisor, because that's just the technician and their incredible electromechanical skill craft. But they're riding out in a van that's fully equipped like a mobile service center, right? It's got testing equipment for diagnostics. And by the way, we don't always know what the problem is. Sometimes it's not the failed motor, it's another issue up the electrical balance of plant, right? So diagnostics, testing, obviously tooling, these motors are big, these motors are heavy. You can further damage them if you don't know how to properly decommission them. So our techs really drive the impression of being this trusted advisor. So much so that it's very common for our customers to say, hey, Stuart, as long as you're here, will you come over here and look at this? So it's the technician's credibility and trust building that really leads the way. And then when we find ourselves in a unique problem-solving situation, that's where our engineering base comes in. And, we've got, well over 200 field service techs full-time in the field, but we also, I think you said 220?
Yep,
something
220.
like that. But we also have well over 125 engineers in the company. And what's cool, I know you understand a lot of their career pathways. How do you think about our engineers and why that matters to our end users in a trusted advisor situation?
Yeah, I think that's been really valuable for IPS. I mean, a lot of our engineers, when a lot of the large motor manufacturers, moved offshore, it left these engineers that had, decades of product and application knowledge, and it allowed us to bring those into IPS. And when one of our customers is able to get an engineer that may have his name on the drawing, I mean, it's just instant credibility. And these engineers that I'm talking about, I mean, they have seen almost every failure mode imaginable of those products, and it just really raises the credibility that we bring to customers.
And some are really technical specialists, aren't they?
They are.
AC induction or DC or this, specific purpose motor.
Right.
They've had decades of experience with supporting. I'm glad you mentioned the OEM offshoring. Here's how I talk about that. Abandonment. OEMs abandon our customer base by moving their manufacturing and exiting service. And it left for our customers this vacuum of, because they used to say when General Electric, Westinghouse, Siemens had service centers, you say, well, they made it, just send it to their service center. They know how to repair it back to factory level. Well, they're all gone over the last 30 or 40 years. And so IPS has assembled 61 motor repair shops over the last, since 2007. This is the largest network since GE and Siemens, network. So we clearly see the need to be in proximity. These motors are so critical to our end customers. They want these locations to be near their operations. And then the other thing about our network is we have some centers of excellence. So there are some motors that require unique infrastructure, lifting capacity, technical know-how, or on-site engineering support.
Testing capability,
correct. And so the cool thing is we can offer a center of excellence solution that reduces the risk. These still are high-risk repairs, right? But these are $2 million repairs. And these are some of the biggest rotating equipment being used in North America today, right? The trusted advisor aspiration that IPS has is really standing on top of first our technician base, then our engineering, then our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Well, Stuart, this was a lot of fun to talk to you about your background and discuss some of the major issues, we're facing. Again, congratulations on a remarkable career. And I really hope it serves as an inspiration to, potential employees that haven't discovered IPS yet. And frankly, our existing employees who know you. And I hope they take the time to get to ask you some questions around that pathway and how that happens for them here at IPS.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this. This is, it's a lot of fun to talk about your career. And honestly, I don't want my career to end. So this has been a lot of fun. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Stuart.